Good morning, everybody. This is a working session on pest control and illegal dumping. I'm City Councilor Ed Flynn, and it's co-sponsored with Councilor Braden and Councilor Edwards as well. We have invited panelists that include Brian Coughlin, Superintendent of Waste Reduction, Department of Public Works, John Blackmore, John Elrick, who's the Assistant Commissioner, Environmental Services, ISD. Thank you for attending the City Council working session today. Again, my name is Ed Flynn, Chair of the City and Neighborhood Services Committee. In accordance with Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 executive order modifying certain requirements of the open meeting law and relieving public bodies of certain requirements, including the requirement that public bodies conduct its meeting in a public place that is open and physically accessible to the public, the City Council will be conducting this working session virtually. This enables the City Council to carry out its responsibilities while adhering to public health recommendations and ensuring public access to its deliberations through adequate alternative means. This public working session is being recorded and live streamed on www.boston.gov/citycouncil-tv. It will also be rebroadcast at a later date on Xfinity 8, RCN 82, and FiOS 964. As this is a working session of the Committee on City and Neighborhood Services, members of the public are invited to watch this meeting, but usually there will be no public comment period. Committee members, councilors, administration officials, and other parties are invited for deliberation on this matter. However, if there are members of the public and they do want to testify, I would be more than happy to let them testify. Today's working session is on docket 0863, order for a working session to discuss pest control and illegal dumping in the city of Boston. This matter, as I mentioned, is sponsored by myself, Councilor Edwards, Councilor Braden, referred to the City on Neighborhood Services on July 21st, 2021. We already held a hearing on this, and this is basically a follow-up working session. I'm joined by my City Council colleague, Councilor Murphy. And I'm going to, well, let me start with Councilor Murphy. Before I give my opening statement, Councilor Murphy, maybe if you want to give your opening statement or offer comments, please do.
Sure. No, just thank you for holding this meeting. And I know from being a resident in Dorchester, pest control is a big thing. It's a lot of my calls already, not just in where I'm citywide. I know Alston, Brighton suffers from it, but also South Boston and all of the neighborhoods. And then, illegal dumping, something I would definitely want to just be more knowledgeable on and have the information. So thank you for letting me join this working session. I look forward to the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Murphy. As we know, there have been increased reports of rodent activities in our city in every neighborhood. And we have had neighbors reach out who are seeing an uptick in pest activities. I have been meeting with neighbors regularly who are concerned about this issue, particularly residents in the South End, Chinatown, and South Boston, Bay Village, who are dealing with serious rodent issues and illegal dumping. In my conversations with them, we have talked about different possible strategies that we can employ to help with this issue, including using products that would stop rats from reproducing, using a new kind of trash can, increasing the number of inspectors at ISD. As we move into the new year, I want to discuss ways that the city can adequately handle this issue. It's important that we address measures for effective pest control and keeping our streets clean, especially when we are trying to keep our residents and environments healthy. I want to thank the panelists for being here today. I look forward to this discussion with you. And I also want to specifically say thank you to our dedicated and professional city workers that do this work every day and every night. It's not glamorous work, but it's very important. It's the nuts and bolts of city government quality of life issues. So we're paying attention. We know you guys work hard. You're doing the job, but we need to probably, as we go forward in the budget season, put more resources into this effort, because I know you guys need assistance. Again, you're doing an excellent job. I appreciate it and want to say thank you. Having said that, I just want to get back to Brian or John, if you guys want to start with an opening statement. Brian or John, both of you guys on mute, but either one of you can start.
Yeah, I'll jump in. Thank you, Councilor. Appreciate the opportunity, and welcome, Councilor Murphy. It's a pleasure to meet you, and look forward to working with you, with the rest of my public works team. Got a lot of work to be done. So the last time we spoke, we talked about illegal dumping, and I brought up a few points as to, we need to look at more of the reasons why people do it. Not so much, just to make a mess. There's a lot of financial reasons why facilities, either the contractors will dump on the side of the street instead of going to a facility that charges, $200 a ton to get rid of material, or, the small remodeling companies or people that are doing their own work tend to, not be a large revenue generator, or, they're not in it for the big money, and they don't have the big money. So then, unfortunately, we see the trash end up on the side alleyway, or somewhere where it's not supposed to be. And that's one of the biggest reasons is the cost. The trash costs us about $90 a ton, and the commercial construction materials, anywhere from double that to triple that, and some materials cost even more to get rid of. So trying to come up with a way that we can, all work together, monitor this stuff a little bit more, maybe create some access for residents to bring stuff to a facility locally. A lot of the stuff is probably coming from out of town, from other cities that have, mandates where people have to pay to get rid of their trash. So it forces them to take some other things to other cities to avoid those costs. So it's not just one issue here. There's a lot of stuff that we can uncover and really work on. So I'm looking forward to another healthy discussion and some more work down the road.
Thank you, Brian. Maybe John Ulrich, if he wants to weigh in, but before I ask John or John Blackmore, Brian, quick question. I know it's not the Q&A period, but how much is the fine for illegal dumping?
It depends. Johnny can speak to it more on specifics, but if it's a pickup truck versus a one bag, illegal dumping can be classified in many things. And I think, the power that you and the council have, as well as the state legislature working on increasing fines, maybe that's something we look at, but we can give you a list of, all of the citations that we write and the value for each of them. And we'll see that, there's probably some changes that we can make that can make an impact almost immediately if we include, a lot of the commercial businesses and stuff. If the violation's not enough, they're not going to, it's really not going to do anything to change behavior. So I think we need to look at, in terms of the size of the building and according to what the actual violation is, we need to kind of relook at all the whole list, really.
Okay. Let me start with either John, whoever wants to go first.
I can jump in. Thank you, Chairman Flynn, Councilor Murphy. On our last conversation, we did talk about increased complaints in neighborhoods. It's really citywide. For environmental services, we are reactive in a lot of ways. And so, especially this time of year, we see complaints really drop off. And so since the last time we have, the complaints drop off based on the days are shorter. And so, the sun sets around 4 or 5 o'clock. And it's colder out, so people aren't outside, but we know the rodent activity is still there. And so environmental services has started to do 1 or 2 neighborhood walkthroughs per week. And we're doing that in coordination with ONS and ISD constituent services. And what we're doing is going out to a neighborhood with our entire team. A lot of the work that we do is before people get up in the morning. Our crew starts at 4 a.m. So just because folks don't see us, we are there, we're baiting sewers. And so this gives us an opportunity to be in the neighborhood. We distribute flyers. We meet the neighborhood associations out there, let them bring us directly to properties that they're having issues with. And we have the sewers baited right before the walk. And so those have been pretty successful. And there is no end date in those. Whatever neighborhoods, I know, Councilman, we talked about Chinatown and the South End, and we've done quite a few in the South End. But they haven't been the full team. And so we're happy to go out there with the full team and walk, especially some of those alleyways in the back, the public alleyways. Rodents, it comes down to management of trash. And so how we manage that, we work closely with code enforcement, who's a huge help to us. Our violations are different. They do not have a fine connected to them. They're a violation, order of abatement that the property owner has up to 7 days from service from the day they're served by a constable to correct the violation. And then it goes into a hearing process if that isn't corrected. So it can take a little time if somebody isn't willing to correct the violation to address the issue. We can't go on somebody's property and just abate rodent activity. And so I think that's one of the challenges we have, especially on problem properties with absentee landlords. But the neighborhood walkthroughs have worked. We do have one scheduled tomorrow for the North End. We've done a couple in JP, Roxbury, and last week we were in Lower Alston. And so we're happy to continue to schedule those weekly and get the whole team out there, put more eyes on the issue, and do whatever we can to decrease the population of rodents.
Thank you, John. Hey, John, can I ask, could I get a list of upcoming walkthroughs, regardless if they're in my district or not, just so I'm aware of it? And I would like to attend some of them, regardless if they're in my district or not. So if you can, and when you have them scheduled, if you could just email it over to me, just so I have enough notice.
I absolutely
I would
will.
love that too. Yeah, I would love that too, John.
We will include you both on it. Jessica Thomas is the Assistant Commissioner of Constituent Services, and she usually sends out the invite. So we will send those invites. I know that tomorrow is the North End, and the 20th is a section of Reedville and High Park, I believe. And so I will get you both of those invites when we conclude the meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. John, I see you all. I see you there as well. Do you want to add in any comments to this, John?
Absolutely. Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Council Murphy. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Since the last time we spoke, we've done some enforcement and education in Chinatown, specifically in regards to the site cleanliness permits. We visited just about every business in Chinatown and checked on their permits. If they didn't have one, they've been given the application and the directions how to reach out to environmental services at inspectional services to obtain that permit. So that's going to be a big help with John's team trying to control the trash down in Chinatown. As you know, it can be challenging between the household trash and the commercial trash out at the same time. But we're definitely working on it. We seem to get a good response from everybody. A lot of them didn't know about the permit. So I'm sure John could probably speak on it more, seeing how many applications actually made it over there. But a good handful of them ended up on my desk, and we forwarded them over to John's team for that. So it seems to be working. I have an officer in Chinatown 7 days a week. So it seems slowly, it seems to be working a little bit, but obviously there's a lot more work to be done.
Thank you, John. Thank you to the professional work your team is doing. We appreciate it.
Could I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead, Council Murphy.
Unless, I'm not sure, yeah. So, Brian, I think you mentioned about the list of fines that you have. I'd be fascinated to see that, because I know one day my aunt, I live in a 3-family that my aunt owns, and she got I think it was a $15 fine for like weeds.
Yeah.
But I would just love to see, and you mentioned about the education part of it too, and John, you mentioned that also, but that would just be great, because I know on my street, I live on Monsignor Leiden Way, and there's several apartment buildings. I'm on the corner near Adams Street, but there is confusion around, and I would just love to know the correct answer about when you bring trash to the street. I've been told, because several of the apartment buildings will put out, our trash comes on Friday, Thursday around 5. There could be a mound like with 50 or 60 trash bags, but they're usually like the white kitchen bags. And the trash comes sometimes not until noon on Friday. So often when I would come home from work, there were sections of my street that just needed street cleaning immediately, just because, the bags would open. But just that knowledge would be great for me to know, because I've heard that they have to be in a barrel when it's on your property, but when you put it to the street, they don't have to be, which is probably true. But just knowing what information I can share with my neighbors or not, or if there's because several of them, like you mentioned, John, like absentee landlords, not sure who puts the trash out, but it definitely has been an issue in my neighborhood before. So, and that list of fines, because I just thought it was kind of funny, like that we got a ticket and it looked like a parking ticket with a picture that there were like weeds under her hedges. But that would just be good to have that information. So if you could pass that along to me, or just tell me where I can find it.
I'll send it to you. Sure.
Thank you.
No problem. John, do you want to speak on the trash time barrels?
Yeah, so the residential trash can be out after 5 o'clock the night before pickup.
Mhm.
And like you stated, when it's on your property, it's got to be stored in a secure barrel. But when it's out for pickup, it does not have to be in a barrel, unfortunately.
Yep.
And I'm in the same neighborhood, so I see it all the time myself. The people coming through for the cans, the bottles,
Yep.
they do not open the bags, they tear them apart.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, that's something that's really hard to enforce, because they don't carry IDs, and if you ask them, they walk away from you. But again, residential after 5 o'clock, commercial is after 6 o'clock, and commercial trash can be picked up any time of the night,
Okay.
up until 7 a.m. in the morning. But we can definitely get you the list of all the violations. I have that.
Yeah,
Brian.
just because it would be interesting, yeah, to know, to make sure I'm not violating any more of them. I thought, I got one for weeds. I was like, this is so embarrassing.
Yeah.
My aunt is like 82. I'm like telling my son, I'm like, get out there, rake the yard. No excuse that we're busy on a campaign. We need to clean up the weeds.
We'll definitely get you the list of the violations.
Thank you.
Yeah. One thing about the education and stuff, also with waste reduction and code enforcement stuff, especially in Councilor Flynn's district, we're working on trying to get, outreach materials printed in multiple languages. I think, if we have the message, a universal message across the city, it should be in the languages which the people understand what we're talking about. And especially in Chinatown, there seems to be a larger disconnect between the residents and the message that the city staff's trying to get out there. And, we're working on new materials to get out. We're hiring people to get into the neighborhoods, go to community meetings, talk to people. John's got people on the ground walking the streets, So I think if we just leave it alone and let people just throw stuff wherever and not understand, it's our own fault for doing that. We just kind of allowing it. So we need to really just jump in there and, get the people that we need in all the neighborhoods so everybody gets the same service. And, just explain, this is how you do this. We're looking at expanding composting, but one of the biggest reasons why it was slow to do it is that message, getting people to understand how to do it right, how not to fail right out the gate. We want to make sure we're educating properly and following up with folks and not just saying, here's your bin, figure it out, so we're just trying to work through some of that thing, but the education and the working with the language access team has been really helpful. So it's nice to have them to assist once in a while, whenever we need it, really. So, if we can continue to fund those things, that's important for us to do our work. We need those folks. We need those jobs. Maybe we need more of those people to work with specific departments, however it works, but definitely an asset to us.
Yeah, that's a good point. I also want to recognize my colleague from Alston and Brighton, Councilor Liz Braden. Councilor Braden, thank you for being with us. Thank you for the important work that you've been doing on this issue. At this time, Councilor Braden, do you want to give any opening comment or ask a question, or do you want to, whatever you feel like?
No, I want to thank Brian and your team. I know, John, you were out in Alston. I call it a rat safari. We had a rat safari last week. I really appreciate your efforts to try. It just seems everywhere I go, everybody's talking to me about rats, and it's. I know we had a problem at our own house, and it's very distressing. If you have, my partner's lived in this house for all of her life, and we've never had rat trouble, and this year we've got rat trouble, big rat trouble, and but we're dealing with it. But not everybody has the resources to be able to do what we're doing. So I just feel that the best whatever we can do. And I had a question, and I'm sorry for my lateness. I was at another meeting. The new technologies and the talk about this. This bait that is a contraceptive for rats to help prevent them reproducing so frequently. I don't know if we're looking at any of those options, but I just feel everywhere I go in the neighborhood, everybody wants to talk to me about rats, and it's sort of overwhelming at this point. I know so much of you. I've always said it's a human-created problem because we don't dispose of our trash appropriately and whatever. But I think the issue that we see in the neighborhood is that we have a lot of absentee landlords. They don't provide adequate trash cans, and then their tenants don't use it, don't dispose of the trash appropriately. So it's many factors involved here. So I think there's no easy fix. We just have to keep plugging away at it. And thank you all for your work. I know it's endless, and I really appreciate your efforts. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Well, thank you, Councilor Braden. I think Councilor Braden summed it up the best. Is everywhere we go as district city councils, and I'm sure this is the case with Councilor Murphy as well, but everywhere we go, people are asking us, what are we doing on pest control issues? And it's these quality of life issues, these neighborhood issues that are critical to the residents. They're public health issues, they're quality of life issues. And if you have a little child, an infant child, and there's a unfortunately, if there's a rat in your house, I mean, that's devastating news for you. If you're not able to deal with that, the next step really, unfortunately, is probably leaving the apartment or the house. You would hate to see a young family or an older couple leave because of that, but that, unfortunately, that's a possibility. So Brian, just wanted to get back to you on one thing, is working with the language and communication access team. They're excellent. And I also have people on my staff that speak Cantonese and Mandarin in writing, and in Chinese and in Spanish as well. So if you ever need to use my team on any translation, would be happy to help you guys out on that.
That would be great. We just, we have some new staff members here, and a couple of their key roles is going to be community engagement and outreach, specific to the work that Public Works and Waste Reduction are doing, as well as code enforcement and trying to help people avoid the violations. You know, I recall residents last hearing were talking about, you know, they wanted to raise the fines, but not necessarily, you know, don't fine me. You know, like, we want to raise the fines, but don't fine me. I don't, you know, but we want to make sure that that resident's educated properly, you know? So I think if you could have one of your staff members reach out to me, and we can have our teams connect, that would be great. We can work on specific issues related to Chinatown that might be different from, you know, South Boston or East Boston, some other areas.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. I'll do that. So my one question, well, I have a couple of questions, but I'm going to ask one question, and then I'm going to open up again to my colleagues. So in terms of construction sites, obviously a lot of construction taking place across the city. What are we doing in terms of working with developers, working with contractors during the construction phase of a site, at the site, and the follow-up? I think the critical part is the follow-up after the work is done, and then it's almost as if the contractor leaves, and then it's the residents' responsibility to deal with pest control, and that's not what I support. I know there is requirements that the contractor has to stay, whether it's 30 days or 45 days. But I think we have to hold contractors more accountable when they finish the project. It's not just pack up your gear and go on to the next project. It's staying here, having someone come here frequently, dealing with pest control, being responsive, working with the city government. So I'm calling these guys out. I don't like some of their behavior. But tell me, Brian or John, what is the current requirement, and is this a challenge for us?
Councilor Flynn, I can answer that for you. So currently, depending on the permit, there is a community sanitation sign off. Any long form, some short form, test pits and soil borings all require a community sanitation sign off, and which means they can't receive their permits until they provide us with a pest control report. And so when we receive that pest control report, we give it to an inspector, and the inspector goes out and checks the site to make sure there's no rodent activity on the site, and that there's pest control in place. Currently, we ask them to keep the pest control throughout the project based on rodent activity in the neighborhood, which is basically every neighborhood in the city. And so after that point, it would be based on a complaint that comes in. If an inspector went back out to the property for rodents, it would be because we got a complaint that they were seeing rodent activity.
So So I thought there was a 30-day requirement that you needed to stay on site or have a presence on site dealing with pest control issues.
If there's active rodents on the site, Counselor, then they would have to abate it. And that means until there's no rodent activity on the site.
Yeah, okay, I understand.
If
I
could
don't
add
know.
something.
I don't know. I don't know. It seems like it's not enough. In my opinion, it's not enough that the developers and contractors, I think that there needs to be a policy in place where they need to be accountable for their construction site, even after they finish, and to provide a safe and healthy environment. Pest control is it, but they need to provide a healthy environmental site for residents, and they're not doing that, and that it's almost passing the buck. Then it's the city's responsibility to follow up. So, what do you think, Brian?
My point was going to be towards the second issue that you raised was after the construction. After a building is done, they contact us to get online with the city's trash collection, provided that they're paying property taxes, because that's what's funding our services. And a lot of times these larger buildings won't have significant trash space. So I don't know at what point they get signed off on the, when they're being developed, or even the drawings. But I think for whatever reason, the trash, and I'm sure it's, the price of a square foot in the city's gone up quite a bit, but I think the trash needs to be something that they're thinking of beforehand. Trash recycling and food waste composting or garbage disposals. There needs to be something where the developer's thinking ahead of time before it becomes a mess. And then it's someone else's problem. And then that other developer moves on to the next project, like you said. It leaves us at a loss. And then the neighbors that allowed this to happen, they're sitting there with a pile of trash in front of their house now, wondering, what are we going to do about it?
Well, thank you, Brian. I'm gonna go to my colleagues. I don't want to dominate the conversation. I'm gonna go to my colleague. I'm gonna go to Councilor Murphy, then I'm gonna go to Councilor Braden. Councilor Murphy, do you want to weigh in?
Just one last question. I know we and I talked about the trash, and John, you live near me, we also have a big rodent issue also. And Brian, you mentioned about the education piece, but is safety important also? I know it definitely will be, but I know that many residents just feel desperate, and you must see this, Councilor Braden in Brighton and Alston all the time, and they try to fix it themselves. And that's dangerous. I mean, in my own house, we had the horrible thing where our dog died from eating rat poison when we had a really bad rodent issue years ago. And I live on the corner of Adam Street. So you mentioned also about the contractors. We could sometimes have more than one different, contractor out there. It could be the city in one spot, a contractor in another doing road work. They often say that's the cause of the rats mostly, but we know it can be trash also. So just wondering about the safety piece of that, and is that not just in the education, but how are you safely, trying to tackle this issue?
Councilor Murphy, so when we, by law, if you live in a single family or that you own, or you live in a two-family that you occupy one of the units, you're allowed to do your own pest control. We always recommend that you hire a licensed pest control technician. And that is for liability, like you said, I'm sorry about your dog. The misapplication of pesticides is always a concern for us. And so education around that, when people do go buy it themselves, if they ask us, there are products at Home Depot that have protective boxes, but we always recommend that they hire a licensed pest control technician for the liability in case your neighbor's dog or somebody's, you'll be held responsible if it's a misapplication and you don't follow the label.
So if you're a tenant, which many people are, it's going to fall on the landlords to make sure, right? Because the tenant
Right.
can't afford that, right? So how do we then enforce to make sure? So that must be,
So they should reach out to us. And so all of our violations go right to the landlord. And we would force them to get pest control on the property, correct any violations. So we enforce the trash, the condition of the property, anything that would be a harborage or a food source for the rodents. And then we also work very closely with the housing division, which do more interior stuff and also address pest issues for tenants.
okay. Thank you.
Council Braden?
Thank you. Can I circle back? We have a huge amount of development in Alston Brighton, and it's just endless. But I'm interested in what Brian, I think it was Brian, or was saying about larger buildings don't have. They seem that they're not providing adequate space for trash disposal, and that's not been managed. And I do hear, I have a friend who just moved back to Boston from DC, and she said that she lived in a very nice apartment building, and their garage was totally infested, and people had rats' nests in their cars and all sorts of things. So, is there are we working with BPDA to sort of set some standards for appropriate levels of storage space for trash, etc.? I know developers are always trying to get away with the least possible. What are your thoughts on that?
Not currently, but it's definitely a conversation because we're seeing more and more of it. Obviously, with more development, there's more of an opportunity to go inside these buildings and see how they actually design them. It would be certainly worth a conversation. On our end, these new buildings that are coming into the city with 50 to 100 units, it's a lot of trash that we're taking on, and it's adding to the work that the guys are doing in the street, the men and women on the collection service, and also it's adding to the amount of volume that we're picking up. So it's, and it's somewhat of a commercial, in the grand scheme of things, it's more of a commercial enterprise when you're having a large, revenue source like that. It's not a single family anymore. It's not a 2-family, 3-family. In Alston, it's a much larger scale. So there's some discussion that could be had about private collection happening, and then it's on the landlord or
and the frequency of collection. Like if your dumpster's full in 5 days, then you need to have maybe a more increased frequency.
Yep, and for instance, Councilor Flynn's district over in Southie, you got a lot of new places on the seaport, and we only collect a couple of them, and most of them get picked up privately because they want to get picked up 4 or 5 days a week. And that's not the service that we provide. So they go ahead on their own and they get their own trash recycling collection, and their residents are serviced, their buildings are clean. It's just, they pay a little extra money for those services, but it improves the quality of life immensely.
No, the other suggestion we have had, especially in Alston, is, to increase to do a second pickup, do two times a week pickup rather than just once a week. I just don't understand. In our household, we generate very little, and we have a small bag of trash at the end of the week, and then the house next door, when you have maybe 10 young adults living, young professionals, and they're just running out of receptacle space. It's just it's all overflowing every week. So I don't know in terms of increasing frequency. I know that's an added cost, but would that be?
That's. I mean, you're not doubling the volume. You're just doubling the amount of emissions you're putting in the streets and adding trucks to a job that you don't necessarily need to. You're not going to generate more trash if we pick you up twice versus once. You know what I mean? So it's like it's not gonna really do anything except put trucks on your street
Yeah.
more often. You know, if people could recycle more, that would be a suggestion, or, you know, start thinking about food waste. A lot of the trash is food waste, organic material. A lot of it can be put down the garbage disposal. Can go to Project Oscar for our organics collection. And then there's a lot of electronics and other things that we're working on, trying to increase our programming to, you know, try to minimize what's being put out at the curb weekly. So you know,
Yeah.
it's just a matter, but it's going to be a huge undertaking, which is going to take a lot of work, and you know, change in behavior is really about all of that.
I know, and where are we at, and maybe where are we at with regard to piloting a compost, you know, doorstep pickup for composting?
Yeah, we're working through that still. We have a couple of different strategies that we're working through with, we'll be working with Chief Hodge soon when he comes in, see what his thoughts would be on it, and just want to make sure we roll something out, you know, soon. So it's very close. We just want to make sure that we're giving everybody equal opportunity, and then also adding you know, some more free options for drop-off programs. So
Yeah, very good. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Council Braden. And just following up on Council Braden's comments, she probably has similar cases like I do, because she has a hospital in her district at St. Elizabeth's. In the South End, I have a lot of medical professionals that live in the South End. In the downtown area too is Mass General, whether they're doctors, they're nurses, but they work, you know, non-traditional shifts. They don't work 9 to 5 or 8 to 4. Sometimes they'll work 15 hours a day. Sometimes they'll work 24. So, you know, there's no good time for them to put their garbage out is the concern. And we still haven't come up with a good plan for, you know, how do we work with professionals like that? Certainly we don't want to penalize them. We want to help them. But how do we make it work for the city? How do we make it work for the professionals that are in the medical community or whatever type of job they have that makes it difficult for them to put their trash out? You know, they could put their trash out, you know, the day before, 24 hours before the truck comes to pick it up, which is not helpful. So, you know, just want to ask you, I don't necessarily need an answer right now, but just short and long term, but we need a better plan in terms of how we're going to work with those types of professionals.
Yeah, I agree. It certainly presents some challenges. You know, there's many professions. There's other folks that have difficulty even with mobility, just putting their trash out. You know, so you could say that's an issue across the city for a lot of residents. But it's a matter of getting those specific folks in the room and having a conversation and seeing what would work, what's doable from a realistic point of view, and, you know, what we can't do and what we're limited to with contracts, and then possibly, you know, the way that contracts are done. You know, perhaps there's a testing phase or something like that. We can always try to tweak things as we go. But it's just going to be a pendulum effect with that. If we change it for a group of folks in that street, perhaps a neighborhood, now it's just going to impact the other end of it, where people used to get picked up early. Now they're getting picked up too late. It's a tough situation to really just give you an actual answer. It varies from place to place.
Brian, did we ever consider, or just kind of thinking out loud, but do we ever consider having people drop off their trash in a location that's near their neighborhood? You know, maybe the night before the scheduled trash pickup the night before, you know, you could come to this certain site on Sharman Avenue from 7 o'clock at night to 9 o'clock at night. There'll be a truck there that will pick up your trash if you're unable to put it out properly the next day?
I don't believe so. Is you just saying having a truck ready for it or just?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it something down the road that we could consider?
Well, we can certainly consider and have a discussion. And my first thing that comes to mind would be, having a truck parked in front of Councilor Murphy's house from 7 to 9, idling, waiting for people to show up. It's not really ideal for her if that was, or if it was in front of your house or in a dead end, off of, somewhere in Southie, if there's just a truck making noise at 9 o'clock at night. We get, multiple complaints for different reasons in all different neighborhoods. But we can certainly work on a way to try to mitigate some of those problems.
Okay. And I guess my final question before I ask Councilor Murphy. We're going into budget season shortly after the new year. And it's important for the city of Boston, the mayor's administration, the city council to advocate for more resources to deal with this problem. In my opinion, we don't have enough resources to do it. I know department heads are reluctant to say that, but I know that's the case. I'm not asking you guys to say you don't have enough resources, but I think it's important that the city council and the mayor's office acknowledge that this is a major problem and we need resources to deal with this problem effectively. And I'm going to, as we go into January and February, I'm going to continue working on this and educating my colleagues, but I want my colleagues in the mayor's office to really support an increase in resources to deal with pest control and illegal dumping, because it's not a sexy issue, but it's one of the most important issues in the city. And if we don't get this right, we're putting people's health in danger. We're putting quality of life issues increase, and we don't want to see people move out of the city because of this issue. We want to work proactively with residents to make sure that we deal effectively with pest control. And again, the city of Boston employees that work on this issue, I think they're excellent. I think they do a tremendous job, but we need more of them. And I want to make sure that that's a priority for us going forward. We're also probably going to increase the composting as well. So if we're increasing composting, we also have to make sure that we have the resources to effectively do composting. And that also includes more inspectors, that includes public awareness education campaigns, working with residents to educate them on composting, on recycling. We're almost paying as much now on recycling as we do on traditional trash pickup. So these are expensive issues, but we have to make sure that we have the resources to effectively deal with them. Having said that, I want to say thank you to Brian, to John, and to John for testifying, and for your professionalism and for your team's professionalism as well. Let me ask Councilor Murphy and then Councilor Braden if they want to also give closing statements.
Okay. Thank you, Councilor Flynn. Just want to echo what you said also. I mean, this is such a big quality of life issue and constituent service issue, and definitely appreciate you talking about, budget season coming up and making sure that we're thinking of, these departments that are so necessary, and making sure that you have the funds and the resources to do your job properly, especially if we're adding composting and all, because that can cause so many rodent issues when people are trying to just dispose of, their food differently and all. So just thank you for, your professionalism, and looking forward to continuing to work with you all. So thank you.
Councilor Braden?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just want to thank you all. your ISD folks, and you've been a great resource in the neighbourhood. And I look forward to continuing our walk around and trying to just work anything we can do to help spread the message to our neighbours about appropriate disposal of trash, etc. We're all in to help you with that, and there will be, you know, community farmers markets and things that we can bring the message and help share it with the community as well. And this is sort of an effort. We can't just put it all on you folks to solve it. We all have to work together to make any progress. So I appreciate. I also want to echo Councillor Flynn's suggestions. We really need to critically look at whether or not we are giving you enough resources to do the job, because it's just we have an increasing population. I don't know how you all do it. Like there's so many different aspects to what you do in inspectional services, and you know, just keep us informed about how we can be supportive and what we can do to help. So I look forward to working with you in the new year, and I wish you a happy and healthy holiday season. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Council Braden. I also want to recognize and say thank you to Kerry and to Juan from City Council Central staff for working on this hearing, and very appreciate what you guys are doing as well. And thank you again to the administration team that's here. And as Councilor Braden said, you know, we're here, as you know, I know all of you, but we're here to work closely with you. We respect the work you're doing. Count on us as allies and friends. And it's important that we all work together, because we want the same results you do. And we're fortunate to have dedicated and professional city employees like you and your team. So on behalf of the City Council, we just want to say thank you as well. And having said that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.